Welcome to the channel. We've made it to Series 3 of Wheeler Dealers, and this time we're going to be looking at a 1989 Volkswagen T25 diesel van, bit of an unusual choice, and also a real monster, a 1989 Lancia Delta Integrale 8 valve. And remember, this time on Wheeler Dealers, they've upped the budget and they can spend up to £3 to buy and restore a modern classic. So first up is this Volkswagen Type 25. Now, allegedly Mike was going out looking for a Type 2 van. Now, these have always been big budget, so he was always going to struggle to get one of these. And he managed to find this rather oddly coloured one, shall we say, T25 from a friend of his. Needed some work. As you can see, when they first looked at it, the side door fell off, so it wasn't the best start. But he paid just £1,100 for this van. And the logic when they got back to Ed was to turn it into a camper van. Now, as you know, modern day, particularly after COVID, camper vans are a big thing, so they were way ahead of their time with this one. So what did they do with it? Well, Ed sorted out that falling off door, and while he was at it, he put in a sliding window into the side door to let in a bit more light. The engine really badly needed a service. It also needed a new exhaust, and the rear bumper needed replacing, so Ed tidied up around the back there. He then started on a bit of, what should we say, customisation. He actually lowered the suspension, which is fairly uncommon with a van. And then he moved his way to the inside and he fitted what camper van people know as a rock and roll bed into it. And he also fitted a couple of camper units into it, so there were sort of cooking facilities and so on. He then went on to what was probably the most radical and talked about on the forums area of this van, was the full vinyl wrap. Now, this was obviously quite an expensive part of the build, and not only that, Ed had this sort of bubble design specifically printed for his van, so it was going to be a one-off. And you can imagine wrapping a van was a fair task, and you can see there was quite a lot of labour involved. And the other thing that came along that caused people to get their keyboards out was the artificial grass that Ed used to put inside to sort of bring the outdoors in, I think it was his argument. And finally, he finished off the wheels with these moon discs, which was very much a sort of Southern California kind of look. So they've done this really nice van. Looks quite radical with this wrap. How did they get on with the numbers? Well, as I said, Mike purchased it for £1,100. The costs on it were £2,725, and they couldn't find a buyer. So, as the program told us, Ed was the one that decided he wanted to buy it and they were going to sell it on later. And he paid just £1,500 for this. So this was an epic loss when it comes to Wheeler Dealers. It was £2,325 loss. Now, trying to value this in this modern day is quite difficult. Obviously, Practical Classics is no use to me whatsoever. So I did a look around the sort of usual for sale sites and eBay and so on. And at this kind of age, a simple camper van like this seems to be around about the 7,000-ish mark. So compared to the 1,500 that Mike got for it back when the program was out, this was £4,675 increase. So that's not too bad really, is it? So this is the bit you all want to know about. What's happened to that van? Well, obviously our first port of call is with our partner here, My Car Check. Now, the last change of keeper on this one was May 2005, and this program was aired in August 2005. So that sort of sounds sensible as the time they could have sold it. And interestingly, the previous change of keeper was February 2005. So that sort of 8 week window was ideal for when they did the work on the van. So that fits in okay. Now, MOT wise, as you can see, My Car Check gives you all the details here. It was MOT'd in 2006, 2007, 2008. It's all going really well. But you've probably noticed this rather big alert. Yeah, it's a write-off. and it's a category B write-off. Now, for a brief explanation to those not aware, if you get your sort of insured vehicle recorded as a Cat A or a Cat B, it cannot go back on the road. A Cat A has to be crushed, nothing can be done with it, and a Cat B, you can take spares off it, but the vehicle sort of shell must be crushed. So this is at this end of its life. So we know it's gone, but where's it gone and what happened to it? Well, I've actually managed to find it out on this one, because back on Volkswagen forum, which has done us a lot of favours in the past, RJ102 posted back in 2012 they'd actually seen this van at a scrapyard in Portsmouth on the south coast of England, and we've got some pictures here of it, and as you can see, something bad has happened at the back. And looking at another post by somebody called Glenn Moore, who posted on Piston Heads, apparently the van had had a fire on the motorway, and with the rear engine and where the damage is, that looks fairly sensible as an explanation as what's happened to it. So unfortunately, Ed's bubble van with the moon discs, it's no more. Before I move on to our second car, quick request of all those you... Before I move on to the next car, quick request of you people watching. 85% are not subscribers, so if a few of you could come on board and just click that button for us, be really appreciated. Now, next up, got one of my all-time favourite cars, Lancia down to Integrale, 8 valve, this particular model. And these cars, as you probably know, have gone stratospheric in value recently, so these numbers will probably make your eyes water a little bit. So Mike actually managed to buy this through an eBay auction, and look, Mike's actually got a new computer screen, because last time we saw him it was one that needed a forklift to move it. So it was a rare right-hand drive factory car, this one, which anyone knows Integrales, an awful lot of them were left-hand drives. It had been standing for a number of years. The owner thought it had got some kind of immobiliser problem, which is why he was having problems with it. But he did have like a massive service history, which for a car like this is really important. So they got it back to the workshop. Ed set to work on it. First thing he did was decided to jump start it and see if he could get it going, and it burst into life. But when he checked round, it turned out the problem was actually the alternator, and it wasn't charging. And the alternator on these Integrales is really tightly packed in, so it was quite a job to change that one. Now, the other thing that occurred when he got it running is he discovered it had a radiator leak, and also there was a hole in the grille, so it looks like something had gone through the grille and through the radiator. So Mike set off to a Lancia spares place and managed to acquire a recon radiator and a replacement grille, which for one of these cars is quite a tricky part to find even back then. So got back, Ed got the radiator in, put the grille on, so got all that running. He gave the engine a good service, did all the plugs and so on. He also had to go through the front end because there was some kind of sort of feel with the steering which wasn't great, and that turned out to be some bushers and also the track rod ends. And finally, Ed had to go inside. Look at the state of the gear knob on this. It is horrendous. It's that real sort of 90s go faster Halfords kind of part on it, and also the pedals. And I will admit, I did actually have a set of pedals like that on a Capri once. So, but Ed put them all back to standard, so it was, you know, basically as it came out of the factory. So let's look at the numbers on this one, and they're a little bit eye-watering. So Mike paid $2,300 for it. The costs on it were just $787, so it wasn't that expensive. And he managed to sell it for £3,800. Now, what would you give to be able to buy one of them for that nowadays? So what's it worth in 2023? So Practical Classics Condition 1 is where I'm heading as usual. £21,000 is their estimate. So that's gone up around about £17,000 from what they sold it for. That's not a bad return to sit on that car for a few years. Now the bit you're all here for. What's happened to that car? Well, let's go to My Car Check, and we've got a bit of information, but there isn't an awful lot on this car. This program was aired in August 2005, and if we whiz down to the owners, because this tells you change of keeper and previous keeper, this car was last changed ownership in June 05 and the previous keeper was February 05, so it's not unreasonable to think that's the period when Wheeler Dealers had this car. There's no MOT records for it, so after 2006 it's been nowhere near an MOT station. It's, you know, we can look on My Car Check, it's not been scrapped, it's not been exported. If we go to the DVLA website, it tells us a V5 was issued in 2012, but that was probably just a change of address. So that gives us a chance that that car is still about, and it's just after the sale, it's just been parked up. But otherwise, nothing, nada, not a thing. I've gone through all the forums, everywhere, nothing. So if you know where it is, please drop us a message or a comment. That would be absolutely fantastic. And I hope you really enjoyed it. And please click that subscribe button and you can join us next time. We'll be looking at some more Wheeler Dealer cars.